If you have a boat, you probably love the summertime. But as soon as those clouds roll in and the temperatures start dropping, it's not so fun anymore because you have to store the boat for wintertime. In this video, I'm going to show you how I winterize my boat, and hopefully it can help you make the process a little bit easier and take a little bit of that sadness away. And we're going to get started right now, so stay tuned. What's going on, guys? My name is Matt. I'm just a dude. Welcome to the channel. If this is your first time watching, if you can like and subscribe, it would help out the channel and be greatly appreciated. Thank you. If you're a returning viewer, thank you for coming back. Before we get too far into this, let's get the boring stuff out of the way. I'm showing you how I winterize my boat. If you choose to do this on your own, then you assume all liability, which could result in equipment damage, injury, or death. So proceed at your own risk. Now that we got that out of the way, let's start with this project. I winterize my boat by basically doing three things. I add a fuel stabilizer to the fuel in the gas tank to stabilize the fuel. Then I add antifreeze to the engine block so when it freezes it doesn't crack the block and ruin the engine. And last, I fog the engine to protect the carburetor and the valves from being corroded during the wintertime or the storage process. To complete this, I need a fuel stabilizer and an engine fogging foam. To add the antifreeze to the engine, I use a 1/2 horsepower submersible pump. I have a 4-foot kiddie pool that's collapsible so it stores nicely and doesn't take up a lot of room. I also need a garden hose to connect the pump to the outboard engine muffs, and I have to have a double male adapter in order to connect the garden hose to the outboard engine muffs. I also use about 6 to 7 gallons of marine antifreeze. If you have all that stuff, great. If you don't, I've added links below in the description where you can just click on it and order it to make this process as easy as possible. The first thing I do is add fuel stabilizer to the fuel tank. What this stabilizer does is it prevents your gasoline in your gas tank from turning to varnish during the storage process. I just follow directions on the fuel stabilizer. It says 1 ounce will treat 15 gallons. I have a 35-gallon fuel tank, so I add 2.5 ounces to the fuel tank. I do this because on the label it says overdosing is not harmful. So I put a little bit more in there. It's better a little bit more than a little bit less, I guess. And then I go fill the tank up, top it off, and when you're filling the tank up, the gas being put into the tank will help mix it. Once your fuel is stabilized, now it's time to add the antifreeze and fog the engine. To do this, the first thing I do is I set up the 4-foot kiddie pool underneath the outboard. What the kiddie pool does is it collects all the antifreeze that's being ran through the engine and discharged through the exhaust. So it prevents the antifreeze from just running down the drain. I just put it back in the containers when I'm done, and then I use it year after year, and I don't have to buy any more antifreeze, so I save some money too. So it helps out a lot. Once the kiddie pool's set up, I take my submersible pump, put it inside the pool. Then I connect a garden hose to the submersible pump. The shorter the hose, the better. I have a 5-foot hose. A 2-foot hose would work and actually be better because you don't have to have all that antifreeze in that hose before it gets into the engine. I then connect the hose to the outboard engine muffs. I have to use a double mil 3/4 garden hose connector in order to do this because the hose has 2 female ends on each side, which go figure, right? Once I have the hose connected to the outboard engine muffs, I put them over the outboard and cover the water intake holes. Now I have the pump all set up and the muffs on the outboard. I add the antifreeze to the kiddie pool. I ended up using about 6 gallons of antifreeze. Now you want to put between 6 and 7 gallons of antifreeze, or enough to make sure that there's about 1 inch of antifreeze over the pump so the pump's able to pump it correctly. I then turn on the pump. I make sure the pump is functioning properly. When I first started this, it wasn't pumping really like it should, and what happened was it sucked up the bottom of the kiddie pool, so I had to flatten it out because it's not hard, it's fabric. It's like a plastic. So I flattened it out and put the pump back on it, and then it was able to pump really good. Another thing you can do to be a little bit safer about this, since you're going to be working down there, is remove the propeller. I didn't remove the propeller because I have a propeller disengage, so it free spins when the engine's running. But to make this a safer project, remove that propeller before working down there. Pumping right and the flow going, go ahead and start your boat. Once the boat's started, go back down and watch the exhaust and make sure that there's water coming through there. Make sure the water's coming out from the exhaust or the weep holes on the back of the transom. Know that you're getting enough water flow through that engine so it doesn't overheat and you ruin it. Once you have the antifreeze pumping through the engine, let it run for about 5-10 minutes. Wait till the thermostat opens up, and you can tell the thermostat opens up because on your water gauge, it'll get up to about 180, 190, and then come back down. and go back down to about 150. On my boat, that's what it does. And I know that that thermostat has opened, and now there's antifreeze going through the whole engine. So everything's protected and safe from freezing and cracking. Once you know that the engine has had antifreeze run all through it, it's time to fog the carburetor or the intake. To do that, you take the cover off the intake, remove the spark arrestor, and squirt the fogging fluid down into the intake of the carburetor or the throttle body. What this does is it allows that fog to go inside the engine and protect the intake, the inside of the carburetor, and the valves from corroding when the boat's being stored. On some boats, if you spray that fogger in it, it will kill the engine, and that's good. My boat, it wouldn't kill the engine, so I fogged it until the RPMs dropped, and then I turned it off. And that's good too, because now you know that that fog is inside that engine and it hasn't burned off. Once you've done all that, it's done. The engine's got antifreeze on it, it's protected from cracking, your fuel is stabilized and it's not going to turn to varnish over the winter time, and you fogged your engine so the inside of the carburetor and the valves are protected during the storage process as well. Now it's time to clean everything up. Before I put everything away, I use the pump to pump the antifreeze back into the containers so I can store them and use them again next year. Once all the antifreeze was out of the kiddie pool, I just wiped it down, folded it back up, and it's ready for storage as well. Once you use the kiddie pool to store antifreeze for this, don't use it for anything else. This isn't something that I'm going to take out during the summertime and let the kids or the dogs play in. This is just for storing the boat. Another thing to be careful of, the pump I used and added to the link below, it needs 2 inches of water in it to prime the pump. This pump was able to prime with just about 3/4 of an inch to an inch of water in it, but the pump did get warm during this process. So I didn't burn my pump up. It only ran for about 5-10 minutes max, but just make sure you don't run your pump too long or it gets so hot that you destroy it. These pumps are made to run with a little bit more water in it, so you're really pushing it a little bit, but as long as it's for a short duration, I'm willing to take the chance of burning that pump up because it wasn't that expensive. If you don't want to take that chance, then you might want to find a pump that's able to pump a shallower depth of water in order to safely run the pump during this process. If you have any questions or comments or an easier way of doing things, please add them to the comments below and maybe it'll help out somebody else, or I'll try and answer them the best I can. My name is Matt. I'm just a dude, and if I can't fix it, I'll fix it so no one else can. Thanks for watching.